And we are live. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Doctor of Stuff channel. I am your host, Doctor of Stuff, but you guys, for short, can call me Doc. Um, as a caveat, as I always say at the beginning, right? Anything I say here should not be taken as financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, not your financial advisor. And I just want you guys all to make sure that you're doing your own research and that you put on your big boy and big girl pants and take ownership of any um, investment actions that that you choose to do. But these are just my insights, right? I'm an investor myself. I've got a history of investing in stocks and also a significant background in financial analysis. Um, but yeah, anyways, just want to give a shout out to the VeVe fam and everyone else who is here. What is up, Randy? You're my bae too. What's up? Let's see who's here. We got. Wait, oh, things are popping up. Hey, what's up, Fam Bam? Good to see ya. Dutch Homie, Bill Gardner, Omar. Good to see you, Omar and Jomi. And then good old Wes. Good old Wes trolling me with that $5 owe me in 2024. Doctor of Stuff for community manager. I do not want that job. Look, I mean, I love interacting with the VeVe fam. But holy smokes, whoever gets that, it's a tall order to fill. And I wish them the best, but that is not for me. We're going to talk about this blockchain pirate, positive vibe for Omi. I think that is the case. But I'm going to dive into this a little bit, right? The whole title of this is a major catalyst for 2024 crypto bull run. Now, I made a video in September, I think, kind of talking about some of the catalysts here. I'm going to go over those again, but add on some additional context and some additional catalysts that have since come up since that video. But the reason I want to do that is one of the things in investing that I think is so important for people to understand is to truly understand the fundamentals or the things that are going on behind the scenes or what makes things happen. And that's why it's important to go with these catalysts. People talk about a Bitcoin halving, right? And why that is, but like, why is the Bitcoin halving? Why is that a big deal? Or historically, like, what has happened because of that, right? So I'm gonna get into let's see, that Unchained delisted tokens today. Unchained. I don't know what that means. Unchained delisted tokens today. You'll have to give me a little bit more context on that. But Crazy Dan, all the best for 2024. I think so. I also am going to present kind of a bear case scenario because we do have to look at everything. And this is one thing that I think is funny is people look at me as like a moon boy. And look, I'm pretty stoked on Omi, like long term. That doesn't mean there hasn't been significant bumps in the road and things that can be frustrating. 100%, like that's the case. But I try to take a step back and put away the emotion, and I try to look logically at where I think this is going. And remember, like when I went on that live stream with Randy, and I was talking about like when I thought that they had removed the signature intentionally from that was a big deal to me, to where I was really reconsidering things. I'm constantly doing that with information that's given to me from VeVe and Omi and the crypto market as a whole, right? What's up, Crypto Cosmo? Good to see you. Look, guys, you guys got to get to know Crypto Cosmo if you don't know him. This dude is a whale, and he is smart. I'm definitely learning some things from him. What's up, Swap? And the biggest bro. I love the biggest bro, man. He such positive vibes. I love that. Okay, without further ado, let me get into this, right? I'm going to kind of go over this quickly, some of these crypto catalysts and why they are important. Okay, so I already mentioned the Bitcoin halving, right? Why is that a catalyst? Well, it's simple economics, supply and demand. So with each Bitcoin halving, right, the amount of Bitcoin mined is cut in half. So as long as the demand stays the same or increases, that supply that's entering the market is dropping, which would dictate that typically the price goes up when that happens, right? So a little bit of a breakdown of what's happened historically with Bitcoin, right? November 28th, 2012 was the first Bitcoin halving. And that went from, there was 50 for each block mined miners were getting 50, and that got cut to 12 and a half or 25. And the price when that happened on the Bitcoin halving on November 28th, 2012, the price was around $12.30. It then hit a new all-time high in November of 2013. So it went from $12.30 to $1,000. Okay. So that's about an 81x, which is pretty substantial. And that took about 12 months from the Bitcoin halving to when it reached its new all-time high. The next Bitcoin halving was July 9th of 2016. The price on that day was around $650. And then the new all-time high after that halving happened in December of 2017, where it went to about $19,650. So that's about a 30x. Still pretty substantial right there, right? Now, obviously, as the price gets higher, for it to go to that next all-time high, to keep those same multiples would be insane price of Bitcoin, and it just doesn't make any sense to do that, right? So in May of 2020, you had the Bitcoin halving for each block mined. You used to have 12 and a half Bitcoin. Then it dropped down to 6.25, right? So the price in May, Bitcoin at that time, at the time of the halving, was about $8,800. The new all-time high hit in November of 2021, 69,000, okay, dollars per Bitcoin. That's about 7.8x, and that took about 17 months. So if you look back historically, it's taken anywhere from 12 to 18 months for Bitcoin to hit a new all-time high after the halving. Okay, so just that supply shock is a big deal to the price of Bitcoin, as long as there's demand that continues to happen, right? More people are going to be wanting that, and then there's less to go around because there's less entering than there was previously. So there's that. So the thing that two things to think about with this first catalyst, like I didn't break down, and I could have, but like Bitcoin's low during that time to its new all-time high would have been substantially higher all-time, like that multiple, right? But the reason I didn't do it that way is because I am guessing most of you guys, if you did buy Bitcoin recently, did not buy it at 15 to 16,000, which was its kind of like most recent low. And why does that happen? Why do people do that, right? Because they're scared and they're afraid to buy in, believing that it could go down even more. And so they're waiting for validation, the market to validate that, like, hey, things are on the uptrend. So almost no one buys at the lows, and typically they don't even buy at the close to lows because they're waiting for like a trend to start happening. So I thought it'd be more realistic to kind of say, we're going to look at what the Bitcoin halving, the price of Bitcoin halving is coming in May, end of April, early May. I think it's going to be end of April that this happens, to what the Bitcoin halving's price will be at that point in time. It'll be very interesting to see. However, I have been buying Bitcoin for the last year, right? Like just DCAing at these things. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. So that's the first catalyst, right? The second thing, I said there's two things to think about here. The second thing with those prices, though, and I'm going to get into why this is so exciting. Those prices never had institutional money coming in to buy Bitcoin, right? It's kind of all of us degens. And yes, there were some companies like MicroStrategy, right? But institutional money is a completely different animal. And it is going to be crazy. What's up, VeVe Wheels? Good to see you. So before I get into the second catalyst, let's kind of check. 2024, 2025, yeah. Okay, Omar, I'll look at that delisting. I don't Unchained delisted. It could be. It'll be interesting, right? I said 12 to 18 months, and that's just historically, and just because it's happened in the past doesn't mean that something couldn't change in the future. And I will say, like I talked about institutional money, there are some significant things this cycle that I do believe will change how things go moving forward. Yeah, look, we're going to talk about this. Yeah, President of Argentina, right? And he's talked about Bitcoin going in going it more, basically using Bitcoin as monetary policy. That'll be very interesting to see, or at least having it be effective currency. I don't expect to blow off. I think the cycles are over. They could be, Jojo. They could be, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so catalyst number 2. In September, the Financial Accounting Standards Board, they instructed their staff to draft a final accounting standards update, or ASU, on crypto asset accounting and reporting. So why did they do this? What's happened? Well, MicroStrategies was basically purchasing Bitcoin, right? Because Michael Saylor is a Bitcoin maximalist. He completely believes in Bitcoin. He believes it's the future. So he was the CEO of MicroStrategies. I think that he stepped down as the CEO. He's still like the chairman of the board. But they've been buying Bitcoin like crazy. And so what was happening, though, is on they're a publicly traded company. And so on their financial reports, they would show Bitcoin. But at the time, Bitcoin historically has been labeled as an intangible asset for accounting purposes. And this part's a little bit boring. I get it, but it's so important. It's integral to why things are happening in the future, like why it's going to be a big deal, right? So companies didn't want to do that. They don't want to mess with this. But MicroStrategies, because Michael Saylor was such a maximalist on this, he didn't care. He's like, I will buy the Bitcoin and I will deal with the hassle, the headache of what I have to do with financial statements. And what happened is, let's say that he bought Bitcoin at 40,000. Well, it dropped all the way down to 15,000. Around 15,000 as an intangible asset. They have to write that $40,000 down to $15,000, and it stays at $15,000 for the remainder of the time that is on its balance sheet as an intangible asset. They can never write it back up. Even if Bitcoin goes up to $100,000 on their financial statements, they have to show Bitcoin at its lowest point of 15,000. Then there's a little footnote that says, hey, FYI, investor, if you're reading this, Bitcoin's actually at 100,000. So even though our financial statements show us at maybe a loss or just break even, we're actually massively in the black. But that's a pain. That's a pain for controllers and CFOs to deal with. And most companies, they just don't want to deal with it. So Michael Saylor was really pushing the Accounting Standards Board to change this, to say, look, there's enough people, this is stuck around long enough that this needs to be classified and measured at fair value. So that's what FASB instructed their staff to do, is draft this accounting standards update, making crypto assets or Bitcoin to be measured at fair value, meaning that now they can write it down to 15,000, but then they can write it back up to 40,000 or 100,000 when it gets there. That is a big deal for any company who actually wants to hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So I don't believe that a lot of companies will do that, but it does allow for more companies to do it. And I do believe that some will. That's a big deal. Okay, let's see. I'm going to try to, I don't want to get so caught up in all of this that I forget oh, here we go. All right. So what up, Big A? Good to see you. The super cycle. I don't know if it'll be a super cycle, but there's a lot of things that are building up that point to a pretty crazy 2024/2025. Yeah, Michael Saylor bought, he continues to buy Bitcoin even at these prices, right? He believes that it's going to go much higher than that. No, I don't think that the blow off top is happening early. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm going to talk a little bit about that when I talk about this catalyst number 3, which is the Spot Bitcoin ETF. So what's up, Mr. Planet? Good to see you. So catalyst number 3, Spot Bitcoin ETF. This one, I cannot emphasize or stress enough how big of a deal this is. Because remember how I was talking about institutional money and how it really hadn't happened before? Well, why? See, this is where the investor mindset has to, you have to understand why things happen the way they happen. Why haven't these institutional investors come before, right? So why aren't there more Michael Saylors? Well, all of these massive asset funds, like asset managers and fund managers, right? They have what's called a fiduciary responsibility. And if they mess it up, right, they can be held financially liable and potentially go to jail. And so they they are highly conservative when it comes to the type of investments that they are willing to purchase or hold on their balance sheet. Right now, that doesn't mean that they won't invest in junk bonds or things, right? Because even junk bonds, like, that's gone through the regulatory scrutiny, and it's passed it, and so they understand that risk. Bitcoin, however, has still been to this day a big kind of mystery and question mark as to what it is it going to be around in 5 years, it's going to be around in 10 years. But on top of that, like, what are the risks? We see that volatility, and no one wants to stick their neck out for that. No hedge fund manager wants to stick their neck out. They see these volatile swings, and they're like, look, if I buy at the top and then this goes down, I could get sued, and I'm not going to do that. However, a spot Bitcoin ETF does two things. First of all, it brings Bitcoin into the sandbox that these hedge funds are allowed to play in, or that they feel comfortable playing in, right? Because now it's gone through regulatory scrutiny. It's something that is traded on a stock exchange, right? Like that is a massive, massive, massive deal. On top of that, one of the hassles for Michael Saylor or whoever, right, is custodying the Bitcoin. If they're just actually purchasing the Bitcoin, either they have to hold it, or they have to find a custodian who's going to hold it, right? And and that's a hassle. That is a big, big deal. And as you see all of these hacks and all the securities issues and stuff, and people getting their Bitcoin stolen or lost, they're sending it to the wrong address. That's a major, major concern for these hedge funds. They're like, I don't want to have billions of dollars invested in this and then send it to the wrong address and it's all gone. Again, my reputation, my life, it's gone with the blink of an eye. They don't want to deal with that, right? But with the Spot Bitcoin ETF, there's a setup there where you'll have a custodian that will then handle custodying that Bitcoin, and they can just have exposure to the Bitcoin without all of the headache of actually holding the Bitcoin. That is massive. All right. So if/when a spot Bitcoin ETF gets approved, it's going to signal to the fund managers that the crypto product is safe enough, right, for them to play in. So a little bit of a brief overview of that spot Bitcoin ETF application history. So in 2019, actually, people think Grayscale was the first one to apply. Bitwise was actually the first to apply for a spot Bitcoin ETF. SEC said no, like it doesn't meet legal requirements to avoid illicit activities, including market manipulation. So they're like, no. So then Grayscale, who has their Grayscale Trust, right, which is backed by Bitcoin, they're like, hey, we want to kind of uplist this to an actual spot Bitcoin ETF. So they do this, they apply in 2021. The SEC says no, right? And so that's when Grayscale, they file a lawsuit basically saying, well, hold on just a second. You've already approved a spot Bitcoin futures ETF. You're saying that we don't meet these legal requirements and things for market manipulation, but like it's the same asset backing the Bitcoin's futures. So what's the deal here? So they take it to court, right? As they take it to court, and they're waiting for a decision, 6/15 or June of 15 of this year, right? BlackRock files, and that gets major news, right? BlackRock, the biggest hedge fund manager in the entire world, all of a sudden is filing for a spot Bitcoin ETF. That makes ripples in the traditional finance world. That is a big deal. All of a sudden, people start looking at Bitcoin and this ETF, spot ETF, very, very seriously. Then in August, right, a judge basically rules and says, hey, yeah, you know what? Grayscale is right, SEC. Your reasoning for denying them this spot Bitcoin ETF doesn't hold water, because again, like they've shown how basically they're doing all the checks and balances that the spot Bitcoin futures ETF has. So you've got to reanalyze this, and that's when things kind of kick off, and the whole crypto space gets super pumped, right? And what we've seen since then is all of these spot Bitcoin ETF applicants, they're in constant contact with the SEC, which is a good sign, right? They're having conversations. And then I promised that I would touch on this. So what happens in December, there was kind of a news article, some comments around BlackRock amending its Spot Bitcoin ETF application and changing the language from an in-kind model to a cash model. And people are like, what does that even mean, right? So look, all of the other applicants had already changed it to a cash model, except for BlackRock. They were the last ones. And finally, they changed it. And what that means is the in-kind model would be like, hey, I have Bitcoin. I'm going to give you my Bitcoin, and in return, you're going to give me ETF shares. That's the in-kind model. And the SEC is too worried about market manipulation with that. And so they've said, nope, just cash. So now I have to, if I want to own shares of it, right, I just have to give you cash for that. And then they'll take the cash, they will purchase the Bitcoin, send it to custodian, which BlackRock's custodian is Coinbase. And then Coinbase will purchase that Bitcoin. So there's less ability for market manipulation that way. However, BlackRock still left in there a little caveat for like, hey, if the SEC in the future approves for in-kind transactions, we want that in there. So very, very interesting. So then the latest thing that's happened, right, is on 12/21, just over a week ago, the SEC met with at least 7, could have met with more of them, but at least 7 of the Spot Bitcoin ETF applicants. And they said, listen, we want you to submit your final changes to these applications as of 12/29 today, right? And the reason for that is because the next upcoming timeline or deadline for them to make a decision or to push it back is January 10th. Now, it could be made before then, and there's a lot of speculation, right? Kathy Woods with ARK Invest, she says that she believes with 95% certainty that the Spot Bitcoin ETF is going to be approved in January. Now, she's like, I don't want to jinx it, knock on wood. Like, there's still that small possibility that could they could not, but everything the way it is, and historically what's happened before a Spot ETF has been approved, all of these things are happening now. So why is that a big deal again, right? Because it opens the door, right? Like I said, for all these asset and fund managers to actually play in the Bitcoin sandbox. Now let's talk some numbers. Like, this is really important, guys. Okay, the top 10 asset fund managers, the aggregate of their assets under management total $44.5 trillion. Okay, so typically what happens with a new asset class, which Bitcoin in this ETF is going to fit into, that is a new asset class, right? Because of their conservative nature, these companies don't just go all in, right? So when we get, when we get this Spot Bitcoin ETF approval, I think that everyone's going to be like, oh, Bitcoin's going crazy right off the bat. Well, 2 things. No, because first of all, it takes like a month for things to kick in, for them to get this all in place anyways, before they can really actually start selling the ETF shares. So there's that. But then on top of that, these hedge funds, right, they're going to dip their toes into it first. And typically what that means is only like 2 to 3 basis points, 3 to 5 basis points. So a basis point, if you think of like 1%, 1% is 100 basis points. So 2 to 3 basis points is like 2 to 3% of 1% of their assets, right? But when you take $44.5 trillion, even like 2 to 3% of 1% of their assets is still like $15 billion just dipping their toes in. And that's just the top 10, right? There's a lot more asset fund managers out there. So they're going to dip their toes into that and start throwing some money in and seeing how this performs, right? And getting a feel for how their clientele, if there's an appetite from their clientele. So why, or how is there going to be an appetite for their clientele? Well, all of these Spot Bitcoin ETF applicants, I don't know if you guys have already seen, but there's been advertising already for Bitcoin. I want to see in the chat if you guys have seen that. Did you guys know that? Like, there's already like 2 or 3 commercials out there talking about this as they're starting to gear up. What's that going to do, right? Well, all of these ETF applicants, the the supposition is that the SEC is going to approve all of the applicants all at once, because if they don't, they basically become a kingmaker. Because the first person to get that approved, they're going to get the large majority of the share of the market, and there would be lawsuits around that. Like there'd be a lot of issues. So more than likely, they're going to approve all of the applicants at once if they approve them, which means that all of them are racing to try to get the biggest market share, which means they're going to throw a ton of money into marketing. And what's that going to do? Not just for the institutional investors, right? And their high profile clientele. It's going to hit retail. People are going to be seeing this, right? And they're going to be like, Bitcoin. I just see this like everywhere. Bitcoin is being advertised everywhere. What's going on? And then they're going to go to the Robinhood account. They're going to go to their Fidelity account. And they're going to be like, hey, can I get into this as well? This ETF thing, what is this, right? So it's not only going to bring institutional money, it's going to bring retail money. That is massive, guys. That is massive. Okay, so let's go back to some comments here. The collection behind me is growing. I've got another thing coming I'm really excited about. I did buy that Todd McFarland digital Figital. That should be coming there, so I'm really excited about that. FanBam believes that the next cycle will be a super cycle. It'll be interesting. I think that things will change. I think that there will be overall less volatility. As regulation comes in, that's typically what happens, is that there's less volatility, which means that there's less opportunity for really, really big gains. But that lack of volatility is kind of what these hedge fund investors need, right? Like they can't have massive swings like that. They shy away from that because of their conservative nature. Mr. Planet, all you trust is Bitcoin and sticks. Shout out to you, Jimbo Lilingo. I appreciate you, man. Such an OG. Don't like holding my own keys, to be honest. It's stress. Yeah, like look, there's some people that just like it is stressful. In fact, I'd been lazy. I had a substantial amount of OMI on my VeVe wallet, right, for the extra MCP points, but I didn't have the total 10 million OMI that I needed, and I was like, I gotta remember to just move this over. So I finally did, and guys, like that bridge, I've done bridging before. Like my transaction got stuck. Like it was such a pain. It was a hassle. And I know crypto, like I know all these things super well, and I still had to reach out to people. I'm like, I've never come across this issue before and figure that out. And I'm like, I can only imagine someone who's never really dealt with that, how stressful that has to be, because it was stressful for me. So I understand a lot of the masses, they're not going to want to custody that. I know that crypto, Web3, everyone is all about decentralization. And I love that idea. The masses will not go for it. They're not ready for it. They're just not, whether people like that or not. So Hong Kong regulators allow both use of cash and in-kind models. Yeah, so like in other markets, right, like in Europe, like there's already spot Bitcoin ETFs. But again, the US, like they're going to play within the US markets. And that's where the largest managers typically are. So did she take her Bitcoin out, though, with Kathy Woods? What's up, Raven? Gold doesn't seem to be scarce now because Walmart and Costco are selling it in bars. I did hear Costco had been selling gold bars, and I actually heard that it was like their largest selling item like ever. Fascinating. So I do think, Ian, with Bitcoin, that some of the funds have been purchasing it in roundabout ways. I do think that has been happening. I think that BlackRock has been doing that. They're not supposed to, as an FYI. They should not be buying it. They shouldn't have it on their balance sheet until it's approved. But I would wager a guess that somehow they've still gotten it while these prices are low beforehand. But there's going to be a lot more, right? And that's why this marketing is going to hypothetically increase the demand for this product. But it's going to be a slow thing, right? Like I said, they're going to dip their toes into it. Here's the other thing that I didn't talk about. Once it becomes normalized, this asset class, typically these hedge funds will put anywhere from 3 to 5% of their portfolio into something like this, especially if it's performing well. Guys, 3 to 5% of $44.5 trillion it's like 2.5 trillion, like anywhere from like I'd have to do the math again, but it would basically double the market cap of the entire crypto market. The entire crypto market cap right now is like $1.72 trillion. Okay, so just if they allocated 3 to 5% from just the top 10 fund managers, not including retail, not including any of the other fund managers, right, that would double the entire crypto's market cap. That's what I'm talking about with like how this is going to change the game, but it's going to take time. It's not going to happen immediately. So this blow off top, like in 2024, I don't think that that's when Bitcoin will hit its all-time high. I think it's going to be in 2025. What's up, Matt G? Stacks. Sorry. Stacks, not sticks. Bitcoin layer makes Bitcoin programmable. Yeah. There's some interesting things happening with Bitcoin. And ever since ordinals, right, kind of came on and how they're kind of working with Bitcoin and these layers, fascinating. Let's see. Jojo just moved their OMI to L2 and it took like an hour and I'm a DJ. Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I've told. I continue to like, let the VeVe team know in my videos is I'm like, for the masses to come, they've got to be able to just purchase L2 only on the web app. And that they can make that happen, right? They can get a third party like MoonPay. You use your credit card. MoonPay does all of the crypto transactions. And they just have like a repository of L2 only that they can just then sell there. So that definitely needs to happen. This is too painful of a process. Even for crypto OGs, it's a pain. MicroStrategy now holds 189,150 Bitcoin for $5.9 million. I told you, Michael Saylor, he is a Bitcoin maximalist. Ordinals suck. Well, like to each his own. There's some people who love ordinals. It's definitely clogged up Bitcoin and made transacting on Bitcoin a lot more expensive. Okay, catalyst number 4, lower interest rates. This is also key to Bitcoin hitting new all-time high. Earlier in the year, the Federal Reserve, the Federal Oversight Market Committee, or FOMC, they meet and they kind of discuss like the markets and what they plan to do. They're the committee who raises rates or lowers rates. So the last meeting that they had, they basically signaled they're like, hey, we're thinking we'll probably do like 1 interest rate cut in 2024. But then in the most recent one, they signaled that they were looking to potentially do 3 interest rate cuts in 2024. And why does that matter? Well, dropping of interest rates frees up money from companies and corporations, right? There's more liquidity in the market, and that liquidity is king when it comes to prices. The more liquidity you have, the more prices go up. And I'll give you an example of this. You guys all VeVe OGs who were there with VeVe, right, in late 2021 and early 2022, when VeVe collectibles were at the all-time highs, right? Like crazy. The Todd was at like $12,000. Rizzos were selling for $25,000. SR Spider-Mans were selling for like $85,000 at the top, maybe $90,000, right? What had happened is there had been credit card fraud and all of the 2 things, right? You had the bots, you had these cheap gems, all of that, which increased liquidity in the markets there, of gems in the markets. But then on top of that, there was a credit card fraud where somehow someone got millions and millions of gems for free. And they just started buying everything and then trying to sell it to kind of launder the money there. And because of all of that liquidity, all of the prices went up. So just imagine that, but then instead of gems, right, talk about Bitcoin and what's going to happen there if there's so much money coming in to purchase Bitcoin. So lower interest rates are massive, and more liquidity means the prices go up. Catalyst number 5. Look, man, in fact, I'm actually trying to sell some of my collectibles. I've done well in crypto this year, and I'm trying to tax loss harvest some of the collectibles that I bought at highs there, and take those tax losses to offset some of my gains there. So I'm with you. I anyone who's around there has not forgotten that time. But okay, catalyst number 5, the presidential election. So the current president, right, especially if like they're going for a second term, which Biden is, he's got an incentive to make the economy look as strong as possible. So there's some things that he might not be able to control, right? He can't technically control the Fed and how they do that, but he can put pressure on the Fed for sure to try to lower interest rates, which they've already signaled that they're going to do, right? But if that doesn't work, right, they can also work with Congress to try to issue stimulus checks, like if there's a recession. But any way, shape, or form, they're going to do everything they can to make the economy look as good as they can, which means more money in the market. And again, more money, more liquidity, prices go up. So what does all of this mean? Oh, this is funny. Let's see. What's up, Jordan? Good to see you, man. Yeah, Bitwise filed its 3rd amendment. All of them have filed amendments, and basically they had to finish all their amendments today and have it all finalized, right? Sleepy Joe's getting part packs. Seriously, like there's potential for that. No, man, this is fun. Like this is all still a chat as well, right? Too much coffee today. Speaking of, I need more caffeine. Okay. So what does all of this mean when I talk about like this investor mindset? I'm building that foundation of why I'm putting money into the markets right now, right? Because I've seen historically what's happened with Bitcoin halving, but then all of these other catalysts are just gearing up. Like we've never seen this before, right? And all of these instances of showing that like institutional money is going to be really coming in potentially for the first time in the history of Bitcoin, and what that means for the price of Bitcoin. Now, historically, what we've seen is as Bitcoin price pumps, right, people take profits from Bitcoin and then they invest in the altcoins. And that's where I am. Well, that's where I am playing, because I mean, I do have some Bitcoin. I am buying that, and that's more of just kind of like a blue chip, right? Like I don't expect as big of returns, but I still want some decent returns from that compared to like the stock market. But the altcoins is where you can get just crazy multiple returns on your money, right? And that's because people take profits from Bitcoin and then they roll it into altcoins. But before I get there, I did promise that I would also pose a potential bear scenario. It's not probable, but it is possible. And I want everyone to think about that too, right? So number 1, it is possible that the SEC does not approve the spot Bitcoin ETF. I think it's highly unlikely, but they could do that. There would be lawsuits that follow, but that could take a long time, right? And maybe Gary Gensler wants to do that until he's out. Maybe he's got another couple of years, and he's like, like as long as I'm in here, I'm not approving a spot Bitcoin ETF. It could happen. Highly improbable, but not impossible. Also, a recession could hit. Even though stock markets are kind of like at their all-time highs right now, there's a lot of trouble bubbling under the surface. Honestly, like you look at real estate, commercial real estate there's a lot of commercial real estate that's due to be refinanced here in the next, well, now about like 6 to 18 months. Okay. And what this is called is refinance risk. The last time they refied, or the last time they made their loan, interest rates were at like 2 to 3%. Now they're going to be at 6 to 7% or more, right? Depending on the structure there. And a lot of this commercial real estate, on top of like that price increase, all of the people renting, right, space, office leasing, a lot of them have left because of COVID. A lot of their workforce went to teleworking full time. So most companies have downsized. They've gotten higher graded office suites, but much less space, which means that there's a higher or lower occupancy rate for these commercial real estate buildings. And this is just like the tip of the iceberg, but like we're talking trillions of dollars in refinancing of commercial real estate that's going to be hitting. And if rates do not drop, there's going to be a lot of bankruptcies filed. And then because of that, there's a trickle down effect, right? And people could lose their jobs, which then adds on to that. So that is also possible. There's some things here. Now, again, if the Fed lowers rates, this could help soften that impact. The other thing is if the Fed doesn't lower rates, they've projected that they're going to lower rates or cut rates 3 times. Doesn't mean that they'll do it. So if they don't do that, because they see inflation rear its ugly head again, all of those things combined could lead to a really rough 2024. Now, all of that being said, I believe that there's a lot of incentives out there to try to make the economy look as good as possible, like I outlined. So my bet is on the bull case for crypto. But I wanted you to be aware, if you're looking into these things, fully aware of the possibilities out there. Okay, so like I said, historically, once Bitcoin starts skyrocketing, investors take profits and roll them into altcoins. Altcoins like OMI. Now, we've already started to see some pops of altcoins, right? As some narratives have hit. The gaming narrative hit again, starting kind of in, I'd say, July to August. Some of these gaming tokens really started to pop, and then it's kind of gone into, shit coins and other things like that, that have started to pump. And we're starting to see some people, including myself, who've gotten some really good gains off of this. But a lot of it is also speculation driven, that people believe that the Spot Bitcoin ETF is coming. And so that the narrative is shifting to the positive outlook. And so people are kind of loosening their purse strings, right? And starting to take on additional risk by doing this. So let's go back to the comments here real quick. Let's see. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you there, blockchain. Let's see. Look, Jordan, if you guys don't know who Jordan is, he hosts around the Comiverse, which I'm on pretty frequently. It's a great show where we talk about all things OMI and VeVe every Monday. It's been going for over a year now. It's a lot of fun. So appreciate Jordan. Been good buys the last 6 months, cycle through narratives and holds. So narratives is a big deal. I'm going to talk about that with the OMI token. Who's pumping OMI? It's up 10% today. I don't know. Like, that'll be interesting. Grant Cardone and Meet Kevin sees a correction on real estate. Yeah, I do think that there's going to be a correction on real estate, and it depends on how big that correction is, how that impacts the economy overall. How much OMI is being staked? I don't know that number. Rootless Girl probably has that number. I know multiple people now that have just recently, over the last 2 days, moved OMI over to meet that $10 million threshold, 10 million OMI threshold. I know that a week and a half ago or so, there's only 127 people that had the full 10 million in there. Be interesting to see what it is. Hey, Crazy Dan, I appreciate that. I forget to do that sometimes. Forget to show my own channel. Guys, if you please, I would love it. Wait a second. I got a little banner here. Smash, push, crush, or gently caress the like button, the subscribe button, and the all notifications button. If you enjoyed the content and the information here and you'd like to support my channel, this is a free way to do it. Again, the more subscribers I have, the more likes I have on this video, the more the algorithm pushes it out so more people can see it. And really, my whole purpose here is to try to educate people. I enjoy this space. I've been in this space for a while, and I remember being new, and it sucked being new. And I didn't know who I could trust. Luckily, I met Crypto Rain, got him with Crypto Rain really early on. And he's a very smart guy and definitely helped me along the way of that route, 2 million floating, accidentally prepared their IMX. Bill, maybe we'll have to chat as to what's going on there if you need help. I de-risked myself and sold a few $1,000s with my VeVe NFTs to buy some crypto, and it'll move first. Waiting on VeVe is like suicide at this point. Look, that is such a big deal. You need to diversify. And shame on anyone who, if there is anyone who's, shames you, season 3 OG for doing that. You need to diversify. And I get it, right? I mean, you can look back and say, I've been purchasing OMI since 007. Now, I bought a lot more OMI at these lows to dollar cost average down substantially, right? But I've held that. Now, for me, I'm more like I can't be a day trader. I look at projects that I truly believe in, and I just buy at these prices because, and I'm waiting for different catalysts. And we're going to talk about catalysts and OMI here right now, actually. So, Metamona, she recently did, and if you don't know Metamona or haven't met her or seen this interview, she does a great job, and she is kind of a Web3 journalist, and love her videos. She's highly intelligent, highly professional. I highly recommend you look at her channel, subscribe to her channel. And she interviewed David, and I know that all of you VeVe people already know at least one part of that interview, because that was basically the only thing that everyone focused on from that interview. I'm going to highlight some of the other things that people seem to have not heard or not paid attention to, that were also shared on that interview, which are a big deal. Okay, so first of all, David talks about scaling the company and that he's looking forward to 2024. The team has been working quietly, building brand new products and a new interface. So we're going to have a new interface with the app, and I believe the web app. I think that the web app is going to be substantially different. He said that is launching in 2024, and I think that they're doing that because they want to draw as much traffic to their web app as opposed to the phone app as possible, because then when people purchase gems, they're getting the full money from that, as opposed to having to take a 30% hit when people purchase them from your phone. So, new products are coming. There's a new refresh of the experiences. VeVe, that is in beta. He just talked about, and actually Crypto Cosmo, who's here, he showed me that he got a VeVe invite, which I did not, and I was all sad. But then they took it away. And there's going to be missteps like that. And it does give the funders ammo, like, oh, this seems like unprofessional. And I'm just like, again, I take a step back and I say, I'm looking at the long term here. Is this a big deal long term? No. So I'm not going to worry about it. Exchanges for OMI. Okay. So the exchange thing came up twice during the interview. That clip that everyone's seen, right, was the second time that it came up. The first one, he says they are constantly in contact with new exchanges. They have submitted their application to a number of exchanges, one of which is a top-tier global international player. Now, he says that the exchanges don't contact them unless they need more information or clarification. So VeVe doesn't get to choose necessarily, right? They can submit the applications and things, and then the exchange actually decides whether or not to list them. That's important, right? So, and we'll come back to that. So, there's questions about plans to expand the social aspects of the app, such as sharing videos. People complain about that. It's tough. Like, to do a video, you have to basically do a screen record, right? As opposed to being able to record within the app. They're going to be changing that. So he says sending DMs and offers. So the video feature, he said, is coming out soon. That there's an announcement that is coming. And that sending DMs and offers are being looked at, but those aren't tier 1 priorities, so they probably won't be coming out in Q1. The question was asked about entrance into the wider Asian market, and he said that they're working with a large global partner in Asia to help them meet the requirements to enter into the greater Asian market. You know who that is? Like my guess is Alipay, right? Like that is such, and I talk about that in one of my other videos. Like, that partnership is massive because it's also very important with like the payment systems there in China, which are completely different there, and that memorandum of understanding that they signed with Ali Cloud, which is really like also Alibaba, Alipay, really big deal there. So he talks about they're looking at doing geo releases. So they did that initially, right? For anyone who wasn't there early on, a lot of the what is that? Man, I'm blanking out on. They did some geo-specific releases where you could only buy them off the drop in like China or in Asia, and then you were able to purchase them on the secondary market. It looks like they're going back to that, and he says they're going to trial with some IP that they already have, and then they're going to do localized content, so more IP specific to those specific regions. It'll be very interesting. And I think that is massive. But they're still navigating the KYC requirements and payment methods, but it's in the works. That is a big, big deal. This is because then the next question is, how do they plan to acquire more users? That will help acquire more users. They have that growth and they have added users and new IPs, but just because they haven't seen the growth, we haven't seen the growth that VeVe experienced in 2021 doesn't mean that VeVe is dead. I don't believe VeVe is dead. They're still moving and they're still building, and I'm excited about that. All right, let's see real quick. Let's jump into this. That's the thing, Bill. This is so true. People come in and they hear the stories of, oh, I bought Doge at like quadruple 0.4 or something, and then I sold it at 30 cents and now I'm a millionaire. They hear these get rich quicks, and then when it doesn't happen for them, they get pissed. Now, don't get me wrong. This is where I am very sensitive and understanding of the frustrations of a lot of VeVe community. We were told things and given timelines that did not come. We were told that exchanges were coming. We were told that cash out was coming a lot sooner than it finally came out, right? Like there's a lot of things that were not met on time, and people made financial decisions based on that. And they have every right to be frustrated about that. I'm not taking away from that. I myself am in that, right? That happened to me too. I put money in based on those things. However, I understand that things don't go according to plan. This happens not just in the crypto space. It happens in the stock market. It happens with companies, especially tech companies. And crypto is more in the tech space, right? Like delays and all of these things happen. And it's happened with all of these other projects. Hey, Cryptoids, what about your marketplace? When is that happening, right? I mean, VeVe got a marketplace out a lot sooner than Cryptoids did. Like these things happen. So like I get that, but like it's the experience and the maturity that's required to understand this space to not get flushed out. So when I see season 3 OG, I get it. I get the diversification thing because you're fed up with it. But you're still here, and I love that, right? Omicron, I appreciate you. You're the man as well. Good portion of FUD is probably from people who have overinvested and not diversified. I would say some of that's definitely the case. I also do think that there's other people who just like they felt like they have been misled. And I get that frustration. I get that. But it's not destroying my confidence overall in the project. Inner Brandy is pumped. Let's go, Jordan. All right. MC1 comments are up 25%. Look, the people who are stacking the true like important pieces, I think are going to do very well in the long term. They're stacking at $28. OKX will soon remove a number of privacy coins. They're doing it based on feedback from users and OKX token delisting hiding guideline. Yeah, privacy, that's always going to be a strong narrative in crypto. And the government is always going to try to fight against that. Dance Buddha Panda shares his insights in Asia, very bullish. Yeah, he's another great content creator, and he gives a lot of insights to the Asian markets and like what's happening over there. Definitely, you try to take in as much information as possible when you're making these decisions. And that's why, again, with my channel, I'm trying to inform you guys as much as possible. I've never invested my entire life. Now I'm on the cusp of euphoria. I saw Bitcoin ad on Language app in December of 2020. Yeah, this is going to continue to happen, Blockchain Pirate. There's going to be more and more people that are exposed to Bitcoin. And I'm just extremely excited for it. Okay, so back into the interview here. This was a great question that someone had asked. Is the team building for Apple Vision Pro? I think that this is extremely, extremely important. Whether it's Apple Vision Pro or just like the AR, VR experience in general, that's one thing that VeVe has that these other ones really don't have. I mean, Todd McFarlane does, right? But he says that they are looking for VeVe to be adaptable into the app version, but they can't guarantee it'll be live when the Vision Pro launches. Yeah, more than likely not going to be live. It's going to take some time. They do have a couple things that they want to announce and roll out live in Q1 And in Q2, certain parts of their business will go through a refresh. The app is now a web app. You don't have to use the Apple app. So that should give us an idea kind of what he's talking about there, right? So within Q1, Q2, we're going to see that web app refresh, and then some other parts of their business kind of getting that refresh, which I'm excited for. The one thing that I am looking forward to, and this is a great question, was the trading for verified users anytime. He says, ideally, yes. They're looking at that coming up regarding verified users. This is all has to do with compliance, right? And know your customer and potential money laundering scams. So they're looking at the best way of setting that up. But it is coming. Trading will happen again. Now, there will probably be a fee because, again, the IPs want to get fed. So I don't think that there'll be a way around that. But instead of having to like sell and be like, I want this and they want this and I'm going to sell and I'm going to buy this and everyone's taking hits, right? That trading is going to happen probably for people who are master collectors, or maybe you can pay a fee if you're a little bit lower down the line, but they're going to have an established customer base that they feel like they have gotten to know and are more established, and those people will be able to trade. That is definitely part of the experience of collecting. And I know that David, you understands that and definitely are working towards that. And that's exciting. So I do believe that trading is coming this year, in 2024. Plans to improve the reading experience on comics. They've been looking at smart paneling. That'll be interesting to see because obviously reading the comics, I've tried to do that. And although it's fun in AR, like I think the DC Comics does it pretty well with that panel reading. That's, VeVe definitely wants to implement something like that. This was interesting. More women into VeVe. He said that in the next 2 months, there's going to be more female-oriented items. I know that they announced LOL back like early this year, like Q1 of this year. I wonder if that's one of the things that's going to bring more females into the space. So the other thing is when I interviewed David Yu, Crypto Rain and myself interviewed him on my channel. He talked about music NFTs or music collectibles launching in December. That did not happen. He said that it's been delayed for a reason. He didn't give the reason, but that he's hoping in Q1 that they will come out. There will be a collectible that comes out that is related to musicians or groups, and there will be a trial period where they will bring out content and collectibles around and with the music. Awesome. Okay, the last 2 points here. Any regulatory issues the community should be aware of? That was asked to David, and he said there's nothing new that the community isn't already aware of. We know that there's a lawsuit. This was interesting to me. He said that they were recently selected to be a part of the education program to help regulatory groups understand the difference between digital collectibles and NFTs and crypto tokens. And he hasn't heard back anything negative so far regarding that. That is a big deal. Guys, the regulators, they still don't know. They still don't understand crypto. They need companies like VeVe to go talk to them, to walk them through what it is, why it's there. The reason this is important is because there is a chance that the SEC could say, hey, all NFTs or all NFTs and digital collectibles, they're all securities. That would be a big deal. I think that VeVe could make it out of that because all that means if they're securities, there's a lot of like compliance and regulatory reporting and costs associated with that. VeVe makes enough to, I believe, to still come out on top and continue forward if that were to occur. Still, it's a massive hit to their bottom line if that happened, and it would erase so many of the NFT projects out there in the space. So it's important that these discussions are had before regulators actually make the laws or make the rules, right, that are governed and or that Congress, right, passes laws like impacting this. So then the last thing here, regulatory issues listing OMI on more exchanges. So this was a follow-up to that first one, that first question about regulatory concerns. And OMI being listed on exchanges. And he's like, they don't get to select which exchange they get listed on. The process is you submit an application, and if the community sentiment is good, it gets listed. That's not fully the case. It's not just community sentiment. It's not just like, oh, everything looks to be good with the community. Like we're just going to go ahead and list the token. Like that is one of the things that is taken into consideration. And I think that maybe people realize that. I will say that the way that David responded to it was not good. He basically said, if the community sentiment is not good, obviously exchanges don't want fudders out there. They want a healthy community. They have ways to scan social media and then make a decision on that front. So it made it seem like that the only reason we're not on an exchange is because of fudders. I do not believe, this is just me, I do not believe that was David Yu's full intent there. Sometimes in live interviews, if you're not prepared for the question, you don't have that response nailed down, and it's just shooting off the hip. More than likely, there was a conversation that was had with one of the exchanges where they talked about, look, it seems to be that like there's a lot of, comments out there about VeVe being a scam, that you guys are scammers, or this is a rug pull, or a long, like longish rug pull, like whatever. Could have had conversations like that, and that was part of it. And so then he brought that part of it up. That is not the only thing that these exchanges consider. The community is big, right? Like how many people are buying the token? What's the liquidity like already? So it was interesting to see some people that were complaining. They're like, oh, if fudders, if that's the reason, why does Solana, like who has fudders out there, why did that get listed? Why did these all the other tokens that got listed? First and foremost, like a lot of those tokens got listed before there was massive FUD in any of them. But then also, if there's a strong enough community that's purchasing and the liquidity is there, these exchanges want money, right? If they're going to list a token, that is an investment. They've got to purchase enough of the token there to trade out, right? And to constantly be in there. Like there's a cost to that. And then they've got to say, how much money are we going to make, right? Like we only have so many resources, so many tokens that we can list. Which ones are going to bring us the most amount of money, right? If there's constant changing going on, that's where they make the money. So liquidity is also a big, but there's a decent list out there of things that exchanges take into consideration. The community being one of them, though. So I just want to say that. Now, I'm sure that did not land. I know it didn't land well on a lot of the community, especially the ones who were frustrated, where they're like, well, the reason I'm so frustrated is because timelines haven't been met. You guys said that things were going to happen. And then the whole thing about exchanges and why didn't we have exchanges in 2021? There wasn't FUD then. I'm going to give you guys my breakdown real quick, just to have it out there of my assumptions as to what happened all the way back in 2021. We were supposed to get an exchange in May of 2021. I believe that they truly had an exchange lined up, but there was a miscommunication in which blockchain the token was on. And once the exchange realized that the token only was not on Ethereum, that it was actually on GoChain, they were just like, look, we are not going to spin up like a node or do any of this stuff just to host your token. Sorry, we're done. So 2021, that exchange that they had lined up fell through. So then the team is like, hey, well, maybe we'll just have to wait until we do the IMX conversion. We're on L2, the token's on L2, right? Like it's on Ethereum. We'll be good to get exchanges then, right? So then 2022 rolls around. They're saying, hey, we're going to line up these exchanges. And then supposedly, in 2022, that's when all of a sudden the SEC started really hitting a lot of these token projects, right? The ICOs and stuff. And I think that they took a step back and were like, whoa, we got to try to do everything we can to make sure our token isn't a security before we list it, because if our token becomes one of the top 100 or the top, more like the top 50, there's a lot bigger chance that we're going to have a target on our back that the SEC is going to come after us. So let's get our ducks lined up in a row. So in 2022, they really worked with attorneys getting that into 2023, where they're like, okay, let's do this exchange. Now we have I forgot the DocuSign story. I'll say this. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible that David Yu truly forgot to do the DocuSign. I will say that it wouldn't make sense for David Yu to just like make that up and it not like, because it's just such a bad response. So like it could happen. SECs have forgotten to do DocuSigns. And let me just put it into context. So the story goes, right, is that he forgot to sign the documents, and then within a few days to a week, that exchange failed. So the assumption is that exchange was FTX. So here's the deal. If he had forgotten to sign the DocuSign, it probably wouldn't have been a big deal. He probably would have been like, oh, you know what? I'll have to contact him. I forgot to sign it by the deadline. We'll just have to get this spun up again. But then the exchange went down, and that didn't happen. So that's my whole breakdown on my assumptions, which are just that, assumptions. I could be totally off base. But this is me. And this is, as I understand the regulatory space, and I'm gathering information from all, like a lot of different places, that's the conclusion I've come to. Now, for 2024, I do believe that we will get on exchanges this year. That is why I'm buying more OMI right now, because I do believe that it's happening. So I'm going to get on to some of the comments here, see what people have thought of this. So, oh, here we go. Thanks for your insight in this crazy market. I always look forward to your views. Hey, I appreciate that. Awesome. 8.8 million. I've got my 10 million on there now. That was a hassle, like I said the other day, moving that on there. It's funny because I was actually helping a buddy. I was walking a buddy through it, and his just happened pretty easy. And I was like, oh, like mine's like stuck. Like, what's going on here? That was not fun. Actually, mentioned one tech advances more. They'll put more important collectibles from Disney for better animation. That's another thing that I think is coming, right? As the tech advances, the different things that they're going to be doing with the animation, and not just that, but the AR and VR capabilities is going to be massive. That partnership is very strong with Disney and Marvel. I like David even more for that comment. He's probably so annoyed with the FUD. Sorry, David. Positive vibes from now on. I mean, to a certain extent, the team has brought some of it on themselves. Obviously not intentionally. And I get that. So like I understand both parts of the community. Like I understand the people who are really frustrated with the things that they were told were going to happen that haven't happened. But again, I think a lot of those people are not experienced enough in investing to understand that happens a lot. And it's not just VeVe that's happened to. There's so many of the projects that has happened to, right? What's up, Rick Shepard? Win VeVeverse. Look, Dan had said in an interview that they were looking at getting more people into the VeVeverse like by November, middle of November, and it didn't happen. And that's fine. My thing this is what they need to fix is they need to then reach out and say, hey, fam. In a recent interview, Dan had stated that they were looking into getting more people by November 15th. Here's where we're at. Boom. This is why we haven't yet. Boom. Something simple, just the communication lines. If there's one thing that VeVe truly can work on to lower a lot of this FUD is just more transparency. And I really hope that they get to that spot. What up, Mo Collections? All right, guys. Apple Vision next month and pretty big for AR. I do believe that. So here's a couple things there's a couple projects I want to talk about real quick. I'm super into OMI. Cornucopia's game I've been talking about for a long time. Kopi, the token has run up quite a bit since I started talking about it. But it is one of the projects, like the founders, man, they're legit people and they really care. They've built up a substantial community. The Corn Fam is what they call it, Cornucopias, the Corn Fam. They have a massive, massive community, stalwarts, just like OMI does and VeVe. I think that project is going to do very, very well there. I bought some nodes recently because I believe in the team. Another thing that is a very high risk but high reward token that I'm looking into, I've been purchasing for quite some time now, is Animal Concerts. And their whole use case is concerts in the metaverse. And with the AR, the Apple Vision Pro goggles and the cameras and things that are coming out, I think that is going to be a narrative that is going to happen. And whether or not Animal Concerts is actually able to complete concerts in the metaverse, if they're just in that narrative when it hits, that token could do extremely well. Now, they have like partnerships, or there's some sort of tie with like Alicia Keys, Snoop Dogg, Billy Ray Cyrus, and some like decently big musicians out there in the space. And all it will take is like one concert to happen with one of those musicians, and for that to do well, for them to then reach out to other musicians and be like, hey, let's make money doing this. So another big one there. Okay. Last thing I want to say before we get into this OMI giveaway, it is important to diversify. You don't have to diversify, but again, like if you don't diversify, what happens is those are the people who get really upset when there's other tokens popping off. Like I look at season 3 OG, right? And he's like, look, man, I'm so sick of like my VeVe collectibles not really moving or my OMI not moving. I've sold some of that to get into other these crypto projects. That's what happens if you're not diversified. So like I am in a lot of projects, and there's been some projects that have done really, really well. And I've been able to roll some of those funds and put into other projects that haven't pumped yet that I think will also do really, really well. But when you only have one and you're sitting there looking at all these other things pop off, your conviction starts to dry up on the one project that you have all this money in. And then you're selling at the bottom to get into something that's maybe already pumped, right? So diversification is a big deal. I just hope you're taking that into consideration. Okay, now for the OMI giveaway. Thank you for everyone who has stayed here for the hour, or even if you're just joining, lucky for you to join in. This question is around, and I'm kind of targeting it towards the VeVe and OMI fam, because I'm hoping that someone's going to get this OMI and be able to then bring it into the app beforehand to take part in some of these, some of the utility from having the OMI token. But look, you can sell it, you can do whatever you want with it. But all right, so here's how it's going to go. I'm going to ask a question. The first one to answer it is going to win the OMI. But like I said at the beginning, you have to be following me on Twitter. You have to have subscribed to the channel, this YouTube channel. So if you haven't yet, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the all notification button, because I'm going to check. And if I find out that the person didn't follow me before I ask this question, they're not going to get the OMI. And it's going to have to go to another video where I'll give away that OMI again. So I don't want to do that. I want to give it away this time. So please, everyone, make sure that you've done that. Follow me on Twitter and follow me on YouTube. I'd love to grow this channel some more. Okay. Another thing that's very important. I'm going to ask a question, but the responses on your screen may be different than how it shows up on my screen, because you're going to type in your response, but it's going to show your response faster on your screen than it might on mine. So it's going to be, the winner will be the first one to get the answer correct on my screen. Okay. All right. Okay. From the most recent Coca-Cola drop on VeVe, what decade does the rare vending machine come from? Go. There's a little bit of a lag, I know. You guys are probably just hearing this now. Let's see. Green Goblin. Oh no, wait. Swap. It looks like Swap got it. So the order I got, Swap, then JoJo's was 70s. So this is the order that it showed up on mine. 50s. So yes, it was the 50s. So Swap. Here's what needs to happen, Swap, for me to get going on this. I need you to put your Twitter handle on here, because that's a Twitter handle that I'm going to start messaging, where we can communicate, where I can send you that OMI. So I need to see that Twitter handle. Well, that's very easy, at Swap. Okay, let me just look. Let me just make sure that I find you here. Let's see. Swap, let's hope you're following me, my friend. We'll see. I'm not seeing at Swap. SOWP. Swap, my friend. I'm not seeing you following me on Twitter. Oh, wait. Okay. Here we go. Swap. No. Oh, you're following me. Okay. And look at this. See, this is what I also like to see, Swap. I like to see that you've been reposting, you've been doing things here. Looks like you've got the red O. So like it is going to someone in the family. So I like that. I like that this is going. So Swap, I'm going to follow you back here. I'm going to send you a message real quick. And congratulations on the OMI. Okay, so what I'm going to need you to do, Swap, I need, this OMI is on L1, so I'm going to need your MetaMask wallet or whatever non-custodial wallet that you have. If you have one, we can chat in the DM, but this is going to be on layer 1. It's not layer 2, but I can walk you through the process if you want into getting this L1 OMI onto L2 and into your app if you want. So congratulations with that. So before I go, guys, I didn't know if there was anything else you guys wanted to chat with or talk about. But I love this, man. Look at this, guys. This is so cool. Everyone's congratulating. Congratulations on that. I love these contests. It's fun. Yeah. Hey, congrats again, Swap. Like, that's awesome. I love that it's someone from the OMI fan. Got it. Predictions. Oh, man. Jomi. Like, look, there's so many variables, but I do think that OMI has a substantial chance of surpassing its all-time high in 2024. Right? So that's 1.4 cents. I think it could surpass that. Again, I do think that it could go much, much, much higher than that if everything comes together perfectly. But I'm not banking on that, right? So, but could it happen? Yes. But we do need more exchanges. We do. The easier the token is to access for the mainstream, the more liquidity flows into it, which means that the price goes up there. Yeah, I can transfer it to you in the app. I can do the bridge for you if you want that OMI, 100,000 OMI. I can bridge it for you and then send it to you in the app if that's how you want it. Or if you just like it to have it in your wallet to sell, you just hit me up. But I did send you a message there, Swap. And I'd like you the response that I know that you got that. So 8 cents. Look, I had it could go so big. It really could go big, guys. And this is one of the reasons. Crypto, a lot of it doesn't make sense. It's all about the narrative and speculation. And so all OMI has to do is, number one, really be on multiple exchanges that make it easier to access. But then number two, hit a narrative. And OMI has a chance to hit a lot of different narratives. They can hit the metaverse narrative. They can hit the gaming narrative if they implement some sort of gamification or games within the VeVe-verse, right? That's a big if. Might not happen. The AR and VR, which I do think that narrative is happening with Apple Vision Pro. I don't know when it's going to happen, but AR and VR is going to be a narrative, I believe, in this bull run. And VeVe will absolutely fit into that. So a lot of it depends on timing of the narrative and how easily accessible the token is. And then on top of that, if there's additional utility where people actually want to use the token, right, that's going to make the token even more scarce because people are like, yeah, price is going up, but like I want it for the utility. I want it for these bronze tickets. Let's say that bronze tickets, like, and that utility has started to happen, and the narrative hasn't hit yet in Q2, and then they're able to purchase L2 OMI on the app. That is another massive, massive deal there. And then the OMI to NFT and the burning mechanisms, right? All of those together, I do think my expectation is that OMI only surpasses its all-time high. So where that ends up, who knows? But it could be a lot higher than that. But I personally believe like it will go higher than that. Now again, it might not. Okay, so one of the things that I am doing, and I think this is important for people to realize, like I will be dollar cost averaging out as the token goes up. Okay, so I have certain price points at which I'm like, okay, at this point, I'm going to sell 5% of my portfolio, right? And then at this point, I'm going to sell another 5%. And this point, I'm going to sell more and more. And maybe at this point, I sell 50%, right? Because you have to de-risk. Otherwise, you're going to get caught holding the bag, being too greedy. Do not let that happen to you. That happened to me last cycle. Okay, I got caught holding the bag on some things. I definitely took some profits, but I held on, and I've had to hold on during this bear market, hoping that some of those projects survive. Some of them have, some of them haven't. So, I appreciate that, Swap. There we go. Yes. Okay, I got your message there, so we're good. Don't look at our price predictions for this year. Look, we were a little bit high on price predictions as Wes continues to remind me. Jim Broski, I appreciate you. This is fun. I love the live stream. I love interacting with you guys. And again, I try to do this as often as I can. Life has just gotten crazy. I try to do a cadence. I'm trying to work on just Thursdays, being able to do like a live stream like around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'm working on that. Yeah. Better to transfer swap to app. Like, yeah. So hit me up. Oh, that's funny. So Swap had got the rare Coke. So that's how we know. That's the one I wanted on the app. That's the one I got to off the drop. So that's what spurred that question there. Stall before all-time high or fly past it to 3 to 5, 7 cents. Yeah. If it breaks all-time high, what happens there, right, is it's price discovery. Then the traders who are trading the coin, they don't know where to go. And so like then like it can kind of go like this, and it can do these big spikes and stuff. So that's where, yeah, could it hit 3 cents, 5 cents, 7 cents? It absolutely could. Will it? No guarantee there. Yeah, at 2 cents, we also have to take into consideration that there are some whales who bought, even if they bought at 0.008, right, at 5 cents, 3 cents, 2 cents, like that's still a decent profit for them, and they might sell out. But if there's a lot of exchanges and there's a lot of volume on there, that will get eaten up. I'm going to tweet out some thoughts later about, since there's more L2 OMI now than during the last one, less OMI on exchanges. Yeah, that is part of it, right? The L2 OMI now is kind of taking off. You can get it back to L1, but it is a process. And as we've seen, it is not a fun process. So that does get taken out of the selling aspect of it, which could impact price. All this without burning. L2 is acting as burning. It's kind of acting as like staking, right? Kind of, yeah. Hey, Tammy, good to see you. Tammy is awesome. If you guys don't know Tammy, she is just such a positive force in the community too. Anytime I interact with her, incredibly positive vibes. Appreciate you. Green Goblin, you were close, my friend. I thought you had it originally. I appreciate you too. Thanks for sharing. What about Phantom? The Phantom wallet is actually pretty awesome. I've used MetaMask for a long time, but then when I started getting into some of the Solana projects through one of the VCs, that's when I got the Phantom wallet. And I have never had any issues with Phantom wallet. I've loved the Phantom wallet, to be honest. MetaMask recently has been giving me some headaches there. So I think, Michael, that's what you're talking about there. But hey, I wanted to shout out one other thing. There is a massive space. Let me find this on January 3rd. That Sanjay, Mr. MC1, has tweeted out here. Let me see. It's on January 3rd. Let's see. Where's that tweet at? Okay. The heck, where's she at? This is a big one that I really think that if you guys are into Twitter Spaces and stuff, I think that it's going to be a very feel good space where apparently some of the whales out there are going to be recognizing some of the people who have been putting in the work, just keeping the VeVe fam active out there. And it'll be awesome to kind of just see. Let's see, hold on. Let me go to my profile. Retweet it because I just retweeted this out. Okay, January 3rd at 7 p.m. Eastern time. There's going to be a space. So check out my Twitter profile if you haven't. I've done it there, but then Mr. MC1, he tweeted that out on December 24th is when he tweeted that out. So please join that if you haven't. And again, thank you all for joining my stream. And if you haven't, I love it if you could like, subscribe, and share out this video and just be along for the ride. I appreciate all the interactions, and interact with me on Twitter. Make comments, guys. I don't have a problem following people on Twitter. I only follow the people that I interact with, though. They interact with me. If they're not interacting with me, I'm like, well, it's great you follow me, but like, there's no, like, I don't know who you are. I'm not going to interact with you. But if you're interacting with me, I'll absolutely follow you. So hit me up on Twitter and let's start interacting more. Appreciate you guys, and we'll look at. We'll see you on the next stream. Take it easy.